Selamat pagi, tuan-tuan, puan-puan. So today I'm going to talk about a new era for protected areas. Era baru untuk kawasan perlindungan. What did we do right? Apa yang kita sudah lakukan dengan betul? Apa ni? Romantik sangat ni. Era baru kan? Then what can we do better? Apakah kita boleh lakukan dengan lebih baik lagi? Okay. So let's look at how protected areas has evolved through time. Konsep kawasan perlindungan bukan satu konsep yang baru. Sebenarnya dia sudah ada konsep kawasan perlindungan beribu-ribu tahun lalu. Cuma mungkin tidak dipanggil ataupun dikenali sebagai kawasan perlindungan. Dari dulu di kawasan Afrika memang ada kawasan khas untuk masyarakat setempat untuk buat perlindungan hidupan liar. Dan di kawasan Pasifik mereka juga ada kawasan yang dikenali sebagai kawasan tabu, or you can call it a taboo area, where you are not supposed to do any hunting. You know, they are sacred places. So these protected areas are not new. But of course, the modern protected areas first introduced in the mid-1800s. And you can see, and they are formed in the way of national parks. Since then, the concept of protected areas has evolved significantly based on the perception of the society towards the benefits of the protected areas. Okay. What is going on? Okay. So, as you can see, how the protected areas evolved through time, you can classify them into three categories, ataupun tiga kategori lah, tiga kumpulan. First, the classic model, where it was introduced back in the mid-1800s. Mostly these protected areas are established very isolated. Dia bukan sebahagian daripada plan guna dana yang lebih komprehensif. And most of the time dia ditubuhkan secara ad hoc saja. Bila ada keperluan, ditubuhkan tanpa mengambil kira pertimbangan masyarakat setempat, keperluan masyarakat setempat, ataupun apakah status hidupan liar ataupun status kesihatan, biodiversity dan sebagainya. And most of these areas, they have very low economical and ecological value areas. Okay, tapi konsep ini slowly evolve again to the modern models, where in the 1970s, we start to recognize that protected areas cannot be just viewed as just some areas just for conservation. So there are four elements being introduced. We need to look at the effectiveness of the management, bermakna keberkesanan pengurusan. And second, when we establish protected area, we also need to take into account whether they are part of the larger network. Adakah semua kawasan perlindungan yang baru ni, adakah mereka sebahagian daripada jaringan kawasan perlindungan yang lebih besar? And then governance, bermakna dari segi tapi urus, and also sustainable financing. Sama ada kawasan perlindungan ni ada keupayaan untuk kewangan untuk meneruskan pengekalan ataupun pengurusan. And of course now we have passed through 2010, post-2010. We view protected areas as a critical component of a life support system. Bermakna ini bukan setakat sebagai kawasan perlindungan, ini adalah sebagai satu komponen yang kritikal untuk how we say, a survival of humanity. So we take into account about perkhidmatan ecosystem. We also look at pengurusan transboundary, and more importantly, we fully recognize the traditional value and knowledge of masyarakat setempat. Bermakna pengetahuan masyarakat setempat di dalam dan of course surrounding the kawasan perlindungan adalah sebagai satu komponen yang integral. Okay. So I'm going to group them into 5 main themes. Okay. On what did we do right and what we can do better. Of course, the 5 themes are not totally exhausted, but something we can take into account and explore in our discussion. Our first theme is about protected area policy environment. Policy environment means, whether we have a conducive environment for us to manage the protected area. Policy means dasar dalam bahasa Malaysia, and dasar bukan setakat dasar dalam kertas saja, juga melibatkan perlembagaan undang-undang dan juga procedure SOP. So if you look at the graph, this was done back in 2012 between UNDP and GEF as well as the Convention of Biological Diversity Secretariat, CBD Secretariat. We did about 40 to 50 workshops to look at the progress of all the regions, some countries, how well they have established the policy environment to manage the protected areas. So let's zoom in into Asia. So in Asia, most of the countries are still in the progress of just starting or in progressing underway dalam progress. So there's no particular country in the Asia Pacific region, in particular Southeast Asia, they have completed the entire spectrum of creating a good policy environment to manage a protected area. So coming back to Malaysia, so what did we do right? Malaysia, in terms of creating policy environment, saya rasa Malaysia memang dia ada masalah dalam kekurangan dasar-dasar. Okay. Memang kalau kita sekarang ni sekurang-kurangnya adalah ada 54 dasar yang aktif. Okay. Ini aktif bukan yang kira tak aktif tak tahu lagi berapa. So in terms of creating supportive policy environment for biodiversity and ecosystems and sustainable livelihood within and around protected area, we have the latest national policy on biological diversity 2016 and 2025. Ini adalah dasar baru untuk keberbagaian biologi yang akan berkesan dalam tahun 2016 sampai 2025. Dalam masa sekarang kita juga ada satu dasar fizikal negara di mana kita ada master plan untuk Central Forest Spine. Okay. So what can we do better? If we really look through the spectrum of policies that we have in place for biodiversity, you'll notice that we may not have very comprehensive policies in place for alternative governance. Okay. Bermakna kita kebanyakan tapi urus untuk kawasan perlindungan adalah punca kuasanya adalah tertakluk kepada kerajaan saja. Jarang ada tapi urus model yang lain. Bermakna untuk kawasan perlindungan yang diuruskan oleh mungkin bukan kerajaan ataupun yang diuruskan oleh NGO ataupun masyarakat setempat. Tapi dasar-dasar ni bukan sangat jelas lah pada masa kini. Okay, what are the co-management protected areas? And also at the same time, there are also limited policies for equitable sharing of benefits of livelihood-related resources. Bermakna, jarang juga ada dasar-dasar untuk menjelaskan apakah faedah-faedah yang di-generate dari kawasan perlindungan. Bermakna, well, you say the local community, they go into the protected areas, into a particular forest or inside a national park, and there are a lot of non-timber products where they can make into souvenirs or craft tangan. But this kind of resources, the profits, benefits, how does it share between government and the local community? This sort of arrangement are not quite clearly defined yet. And lastly, as you know, there's also lack of recognition of communities, masyarakat pengetahuan, the local communities with traditional knowledge to be engaged as protected area personnel. We all know that masyarakat setempat mereka adalah pemilik pengetahuan tradisi. Mereka mempunyai pengetahuan yang sangat mungkin sangat terperinci tentang kawasan ataupun hutan yang mereka have their livelihood. So whether we can engage them, as a staff force to co-manage the management part, there is quite lack of current procedures to deal with that. So this is something I think we can do better. So second team, management planning, perancangan pengurusan. So this deals with management plans of the protected areas. As you know, as the standard best practice, all protected areas should have a management plan. Okay, and you look into Asia again. Okay. So most of us, there are quite a potential up to almost 50% of the protected areas tidak mempunyai satu plan pengurusan. So 0 to 15%, they are in that categories. The rest are in the categories of 16 to 75%. Yeah. So which is compared to other regions, Asia has the largest number of protected areas which do not have management plans. But in Malaysia, we do have success story. Ada, in the Pittsram Forest, many years back, we have this project with FRIM. Tree management plans have been developed. Telah didubuhkan untuk Southeast Panghang Pittsram Forest, Logan Bunu in Sarawak, dan Kilas Peninsula in Sabah, with full involvement of the local district office, state forestry department, as well as the local and indigenous communities. And as a result, daripada projek ini, semua hutan Pittsram, and there's an expansion. I think Pahang state government committed to gazette more Pittsram forests at the end. Okay, and some of the best practices in management planning is we should incorporate ecosystem services and sustainable livelihood in the plan. Seldom you see such is incorporated. But in Cuba, ada salah satu case study lah di Cuba, they have an ecosystem-based management plan in place, and they work with the fishery sector to promote sustainable fishing practices. So in the end, they managed to restore the fish stock and even maintain its current stock. So, so now we move on to another team, the third team, which I briefly mentioned, adalah tapi urus kawasan perlindungan dan juga penyertaan oleh semua pihak berkepentingan. Ya, betul. Okay. As you see, this is another graph showing the global progress. This is something also the Southeast Asia has not done very, very well. Most of the time, we are still in the category of just started or underway. Okay. One of the things that we should do is to promote the widest range of possible to encourage protected area governance. And in Guatemala, kawasan apakah taman-taman di daerah adalah diuluskan oleh masyarakat setempat. Ini merupakan satu contoh di mana pengurusan kawasan perlindungan adalah diturunkan kuasa kepada masyarakat setempat dan tidak centralize lah di kerajaan pusat. Okay. And protected area, and some of the things that we could do better is protected area and some of the related agencies, they may not have experience in dealing with other conserved areas or alternative forms of governance, because you see most of us are working in an environment where government take the lead. So what if we are working in a very different environment where the local communities or even the NGOs are now running the parks? So how should you how should you involve, and then how should you define your roles and responsibility in such a setting. So ini adalah kawasan, ini merupakan satu perkara yang kita perlu mengambil pertimbangan. And some of the ways that we can try out is to have pilots, pilot studies, in particular, a site or even a region, which can help the planners to understand the challenges and also the opportunities. And as you know, the more we engage with stakeholders, okay, we all know setiap pihak berkepentingan memang ada kepentingan dengan minat sendiri. Bila mereka berada dalam satu one platform where everyone is discussing, there is bound to have a potential of conflict situations. As you know, some masyarakat mungkin kepentingan masyarakat setempat adalah isu-isu berkenaan tanah, hak milik tanah. Tapi kalau untuk kepentingan pengurus kawasan perlindungan, mungkin dia adalah objektif saya adalah untuk mengekalkan hidupan liar dan juga keberbahagiaan biologi di kawasan tersebut. So how do you manage such a potential conflict situation is something that we need to take into account, and we should develop a transparent and effective dispute resolution mechanism. Sometimes, some of the SOPs when we deal with stakeholders, we may not take into account a potential conflict situation. So we will need to have that kind of mechanisms to do with it. Okay. So the fourth theme is important. We all know, kalau tak ada duit, macam mana nak urus. Okay. Semua kaki tangan kena ada gaji, setiap bulan. Dan kemudian pengurus kawasan perlindungan, taman-taman negara pun kena pastikan setiap bulan kena ada budget yang mencukupi. Okay. So as you know, if you look at the global progress and also zoom into Southeast Asia region, most of our protected areas, they do not know how much they need. Mereka tidak tahu berapa banyak yang diperlukan untuk menguruskan satu kawasan perlindungan. Apakah keperluan kewangan yang sekurang, yang minimum ataupun yang optimum. Okay. So, in terms of di Malaysia, what we have done right, of course, setiap 5 tahun kita ada rancangan Malaysia kebangsaan. Okay, kita ada development budget untuk kawasan perlindungan dan taman-taman negara. And you can see there's an increasing trend. Memang ada trendnya, memang ada menambah lah. Okay, dari 2010 ke 2015. Okay. Dan kita sudah ada satu case pembayaran untuk perkhidmatan ekosistem yang pertama di Malaysia di Perak. Okay. And there's also a very good success stories from Sabah where you have generate revenue from ecotourism programs and activities, okay, for the Sabah parks. So what can we do better? I think there is a need to assess what is the actual cost of managing the protected areas in Malaysia. Okay, in terms of network, jaringan kawasan perlindungan. And secondly, I think in terms of overall, the government budget allocations are still below the estimated needs. Okay, ini adalah estimate saja. Apakah cost, budget yang betul-betul diperlukan, kami tak tahu. Ini jangkaan saja. Okay. And then most of the protected areas, we do not recover the management and maintenance costs in the form of entrance fees or even, activity charges. If you go into Peninsular Malaysia, I think most of our parks, we do not even charge entrance fees, only a few significant ones. And many protected areas managers, pengurus kawasan perlindungan ataupun taman-taman negara, mereka tidak mempunyai kemahiran untuk tulis, okay, ataupun untuk rancangkan apakah keperluan kewangan untuk buat budget. So this is something that we need to increase our capacity. Okay. Finally, theme number 5 is about connectivity corridors and transboundary protected areas. As I can say, semua kawasan perlindungan adalah satu jaringan. Mereka kena dilihat sebagai bukan satu-satu taman, tapi sebagai satu rangkaian taman-taman. Okay. So, in terms of connecting all these corridors as a landscape, yes, in Asia, in particular in Malaysia, this is something that we are addressing. And something that we have done right is we have I think one of the world's first spatial plan in managing our central forest spine, where we have designated ecological corridors, where you have primary linkages and secondary linkages. And we also have in East Malaysia, the Heart of Borneo initiative. But some of the best practices we have to take into account is to incorporate the social and economic benefits into the corridors, and also design and manage the transboundary protected areas. First, to enhance the livelihood, maintain ecosystem services, enable the climate change adaptation. So that's it. This is my presentation. If you have any questions or feedback, probably we can do it during the Q&A session, right? Or now? Q&A session. Okay, thank you very much.